in just a moment, but here's a headline that possibly can gladden the heart. UK energy should be 95% nuclear or green by 2030. That's just 8 years, well, 7 really, years away. How will this extraordinarily ambitious goal be met? Let's turn to Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng, who joins you from Hinkley Point C nuclear plant even, in Somerset. OK, that's the question then, Secretary of State. A very bold ambition. How are you going to meet it? Good morning.
Very good morning to you, Nick. And as you say, I'm here in Hinkley Point C, which is the largest construction site in Europe. I think it's really important that listeners understand that. And the way we're going to hit that target is through a mix of things. We've got offshore wind, that people may know about. We've got some onshore wind, and also we've got a large nuclear program as well that's going to provide energy regardless of whether the sun's shining or the wind is blowing. So it's a mix of energy sources. And the reason why we need a diverse mix is that gives you security. Just as in any other form of long-term planning, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. We can't simply just rely on one technology. We've got a mix of technologies we talk about in the strategy: nuclear, offshore wind, and also other new exciting technologies like hydrogen, which could be a real boon in the future.
All of which is very exciting, but I think you'd have to concede some years off. Some campaigners would argue, where were the words about insulating Britain's homes, which you could bring in this afternoon?
So we've talked a lot about insulation. I mean, the energy strategy, security strategy, is only the latest of a number of documents that we published over the last year relating to the net zero strategy. We've announced billions for programs like the home upgrade scheme. We've got a boiler upgrade scheme that's coming out very soon. And all of these schemes commit hundreds of millions, if not billions, of taxpayers' money, but to making sure that we've got proper insulation in our houses. This strategy today, Nick, was all about security in the future, and that's why the focus is on technologies that can generate power, generate electricity for your kettle, for your lights at home, so that we can have security of supply here in the UK.
So just a slight more detail as regards insulation, and that there is a programme to encourage or indeed to help people insulate their properties. Is that correct, Secretary of State?
We've been doing that for a number of years, and also we not only committed to more expenditure in the manifesto 2.5 years ago. We've also in the budget as well committed money to insulate homes, and it's not just homes; it's public sector buildings. It's buildings of lots of different sizes and descriptions. And we realise that insulating buildings is really important to get energy efficiency, because if you have a better insulated home, you need less energy to heat it, and that's really important as well if we're thinking about conserving our resources.
All right. One point made here by Piers in Kent, who emails: does the Secretary of State realise Britain is a relatively small island surrounded by water? Why are we not harnessing tidal power? Kwasi Kwarteng.
Piers makes a really good point, and I'm very proud of the fact that as Secretary of State, for the first time, only at the end of December, we committed to tidal stream technology. We're supporting the people who are trying to invent and develop technology that's going to harness tidal energy, and I think in the future that will have a big part to play.
What sort of future? I mean, clearly not the immediate future, Mr. Kwarteng.
That's quite long distant. I mean, the sense that we've got lots of tidal power because we're an island, I think that's absolutely right. The problem we've got is that the engineering and the technology that we have is very expensive now.
So it's expensive to grab it, is it? This is the problem.
Yes, that's right. So what we're trying to do is to support it. And then once you start supporting it, people will invest more in it. And by investing more in it, you can drive down the costs. This is exactly what happened with offshore wind, Nick. Okay. So, 15 years ago, we didn't really have offshore wind technology. It was very expensive, but the government supported it, and it attracted loads of investment in it. And that's driven down the costs, and that's been very successful.
Okay. Noting you're not the Home Secretary, Mr. Kwarteng, how is a grip to be made on the visa system to allow Ukrainians to come into this country? I don't expect you to know the numbers, it's not your area, but let me assure you that over 150,000 families in this country have come forward offering homes. Tens of thousands of visas have been issued. but the number of Ukrainians who've actually made it into this country is pitifully small, around 1,000 and something it would appear. Meanwhile, in Ireland, 20,000 Ukrainians. Why this lamentable failure?
I think we need a strong grip on the process. I know that Priti Patel is working extremely hard with her officials to try and sort this out.
But we hear this, respectfully, we hear this each week now, and I don't blame you. This is the first time you and I have aired this, but my listeners have heard this for the thick end of 10 days. We are not moving forward, Mr. Kwarteng. Someone needs to bring about business at the Home Office.
Yes, I think the Home Office is trying to look at this. It's trying to make sure that we can get this thing done in an orderly process. And actually, you say it's not my area. Constituents of mine have written to me.
I'm sure
making this very point, and I've spoken to the Home Secretary about it as well, and she's very focused on trying to deal with it.
You must have your head in your hands that this country, the incredible warmth and generosity, yet it would appear we still have the computer says no mentality, in that we send inspectors round to see if we need to drain a pond before a Ukrainian family can be settled in a home. This is absurd, Secretary of State.
Look, I don't think that we should be ashamed of the generosity that we
I'm not
show.
saying that. I'm rather the local authorities. Pettifogging rules.
I think the bureaucratic
Lovely
process
word.
Need to be, you like that word.
I do like that word. But do you agree this is pettifogging?
Look, I agree that lots of minor bureaucratic considerations can get in the way of a quick outcome. I mean, I've been in government long enough to see that. All I would say to you is that I think we are trying to fix this thing and sort it out. And I'm very hopeful that we can do that quickly.
A couple of other things I'm not aware of, and I don't think that the tax affairs of Mrs. Kwarteng are any of my business. Should we know about the affairs of Mrs. Sunak?
Look, I think that he's been very straightforward about this. It's a very simple principle. So there's the non-domiciled status, and what that means is that essentially you pay tax on your UK income in the UK, which, as far as I understand, she does, and then outside the UK, you pay the tax outside the UK. It's a very simple status. It's been around for more than 200 years, and the Chancellor's been very transparent about it, and that's, as far as I'm concerned, the end of the matter.
But it's a little damaging, isn't it, as he imposes taxes on some people who now can't afford the heating so that they can actually heat up the food for their children. Meanwhile, we learn, albeit his wife is not a political appointment, but his wife enjoys this extraordinary financial status and benefits.
I think he's always been very clear, and I think people have always known that he comes from a very affluent family. But the implication that there's been any wrongdoing is completely wrong. And he's been very, very transparent. He's very decent, very clear about those affairs. And I think we should move on from this.
All right. And lastly, we will move on. Final question, actually, about the first area we explored. I note again, we mentioned briefly tidal power. Where are we with fracking, Secretary of State?
So on fracking, as you know, I made an announcement that we're going to look at it again. And the reason I'm doing that is because we've got gas prices that are at record highs. We've got Putin as well, who's threatening to turn off the gas to Europe. We're not exposed to him, but we do need to look at, again, I suppose, at the resources that we have in this country.
But what does that mean in time? I mean, is there a review that's going to take a week, a month, a year? What does it mean in time-wise, Mr. Kwarteng?
The review will take, as far as I understand, 3 months, and then we will reach a conclusion. But I just felt, given where we are, that it was time to look again at what our policy was in this.
Have a successful visit. Have a successful visit to Hinkley Point C nuclear plant in Somerset. Kwasi Kwarteng, Business Secretary, appearing on LBC, where the news is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, an expansion of nuclear power is at the centre of the government's long-awaited energy strategy. Ministers will aim for nuclear to generate 25% of the UK's electricity by 2050.